Alright guys, let's go back to the EverythingCFB podcast. Today, me and Nick here with 2023 preview and prediction for the Wake Forest Deacons under this coaching staff. Dave Clawson enters his 10th season. Pretty modest 59-53 record. Doing a good job for this program. Warren Ruggiero, he's been there the whole time, Nick, as the offensive coordinator, 10th year in the role. Love that they've been able to keep this bond going for a decade. And Brad Limber, second year on staff. I do believe this is his second or third tenure with Wake Forest. The biggest headline, though, Clawson's tenure seems capped, Nick. How much longer will he stick around for an average program? You know, they've lost 14 in a row to Clemson. Don't really seem to have that signature win. I know a couple years back they did go to the conference championship game. That's about it, though. I think Clawson eventually he's going to take a bigger and better role, especially with all these conference realignments. These schools are going to be looking to lock in their long-term head coaches, and Clawson may be one of those guys.
I agree. I think it certainly possibly takes a bigger jump and joins a program elsewhere in the country. And Wake Forest does have the deck stacked against them. They're the smallest Division I Power 5 school in terms of football programs. You know, very small attendance at Wake Forest, very small, very solid school, great educational school. Just a very small student body. They did make the conference title game 2 years ago, certainly credit. They did give Clemson a run for their money this past season in that game, but turnovers late in that game cost them by their quarterback, Sam Hartman, who's moved on at this point. Wake Forest, you know, they're a team that they can never, I don't think, in my opinion, they can ever get past where they are. I think they've hit the ceiling here. There's not really much more this program can do, given limitations on student body size, scholarships, things of that nature. I commend Clawson for what he's done, but I think I'm on there with you that the 59-53 record over 10 years, he's got to probably end up finding a new role somewhere else. You know, a bigger school in the ACC would certainly not be a bad idea to take a punt on him.
Look at the offensive side of the ball. You know, this RPO mesh style offense has certainly been very successful in the past couple of seasons. Sam Hartman was the catalyst for this unit. Transfers to Notre Dame. One big problem he had though was turnovers. And our Mitch Griffiths can start and certainly tone that down. He got to start week 1 versus VMI last year. Showcased some good flick and touch. He can throw on the run with some good rip. Throws high to where wide receivers can make hand catches. Only that bit of experience is it for him, at least in terms of playing. He has been in the system for 3 years. 5'11", 192. Nick, his brother Brett ended up transferring out a couple months ago. So looks like this is going to be his offense. They're going to give him the reins. I certainly like the couple years in this offense. In a second, we'll touch on the supporting cast. But I like what they have here. I think this is going to be a productive football player this year. I think about 3,000, 3,500 yards. It's going to be on the table for Mitch.
I think he is a good quarterback that slots into this offense. He's got good potential. Looked good in that one game against VMI. I think he's a solid piece to add to this offense. A little undersized at 5'11", 192. Concerns me a little bit, but I think he has experience in the system. Been there on the bench, you know, understanding the playbook. Throw on the run, good flick, good touch overall. I think this is a solid quarterback that steps into an offense that's looking to cut down on turnovers, which has been a real big issue plaguing them.
And you look at the running back floor, Justice Ellison, a good contact runner. He's been efficient in the past 2 years. Desmond Claiborne, Will Towns. 2 touches each last year's freshman. Typically a by-committee rotational approach, so I expect to see the field good fit this year. 131 rushing yards per game. That was good for 93rd in the country. And you know, Nick, this style of offense, they don't always look to get the ground game involved. They really just look for efficiency, and I think they've done a pretty solid job in doing that. But I think Ellison's going to see an increased workload this season. I think the young quarterback's going to look to get some help, and then these younger guys, not sure how sturdy they will be. So I think Ellison's in for a good season. I'd say at least 900 yards, which that might be a stretch in this offense. I certainly don't think it is.
I think Ellison's a good running back to have. He had 700 yards on the ground this past season, 4.1 yards per carry and 6 scores. Claiborne as well, you know, a bit part player, had a few touches here and there. So I think there is some potential with that running back game. I think Ellison is a good player. Also can have a few catches from the backfield, so he can involve in that as well. Good balance there of him as your back.
You look at the wide receiver, led by Jamal Banks, a good route runner with IQ. Great catch radius, match with soft hands. Possession, pass catcher is not really going to do much in terms of stretching the field vertically at 6'4", 208. The rest of this group is pretty experienced. Donovan Green, I read just today that the 6'2", 210 veteran, who's been highly efficient over the past couple of seasons. He's going to be down with an injury for a couple of months, so you can pretty much scratch him off for 2023. Taylor Morton, a great slot option with great hands and ball security. Big fan of his. Keyshawn Williams, a reliable producer last season. Great experience is back. After those 4 guys, not much, really 3 guys now. This offense always finds a way to gradually get guys involved, though, Nick, at a calm pace, so I'm not too worried about it. For a little bit more pressure for guys like Keyshawn Williams following the absence of Green.
Yeah, losing Green for 3 to 5 months with knee injury is certainly a big blow for this offense. He's a very talented player. Could they lose? A good weapon to have. Tough loss here for them. Certainly he was their top returning pass catcher. Jamal Banks was not that far behind him with 636 yards receiving this past season there. I think Banks is a very good player. Tyler Moreland in a slot is a very solid player. He had 9 touchdowns, 12.2 yards per grab, and 575 yards for him. Solid numbers. Keyshawn Williams, another great piece to return with 553 yards receiving and 1 score for him. Wesley Grimes is a bit part player as well who returns. He was a true freshman, got a few games appearances here and there, 6 games total. He will play. Let's get a better role potentially at that wide receiver Z or X role. Overall, I think this is a good wide receiving unit that has some nice talent. Certainly losing a guy in green is a tough blow, but I think they can find a way to step up and have these guys be involved.
Those are the big boys up front. Spencer Clapp, he was solid this year, 250 snaps at left tackle. Richard Sr. should man that role full time this season. Veteran Michael Jurgens is very sound at center. Formidable pass blocker. Might move over the left guard as Luke Pittavon is back after missing all of last season. Only 160 career snaps, though, to his name. So not exactly a penciled-in starter. A few options there on the interior. Nick Sharp, he was solid during his freshman season. 6'2", 330. But he moved to the right guard starting spot. Monday Gordon was probably their best returning lineman. Did allow 22 pressures and 4 sacks, though. The volume's also a lot larger in this offense. I'll be a little bit lenient on those numbers. This was a sound offensive line, I think, for the most part. They were 107th nationally in sacks allowed. That's either from Hartman at times taking the sacks, or the unit would allowed them from a fast collapsing pocket. So a lot of inconsistencies up front, or from your quarterback, Nick, that certainly needs to be cleaned up. But considering that, they still put up great numbers. If they can certainly, get rid of some of those deficiencies, they could be a much improved unit.
I think this is a good unit on paper. Spencer Clapp's a solid player at left tackle, good leader for this veteran Michael Jurgens, as well as a solid player. Nick Sharp looked good in his limited appearances as a true freshman, so I think there is some serious potential with this unit. There are some nice talented big guys here that can really block. The sacks numbers have to come down. Of course, some of that does in part lie on Sam Hartman. Now that he's gone, you could see that potentially be different with Mitch Griffiths being the quarterback, but I think this is something they certainly have to improve.
B-plus unit for me. I think the receiving core is nice. I expect Griffiths to step into this role with ease. And I think the backfield certainly has some nice options. Led by Ellison, it's probably going to have an uptick in production. I think that offensive line certainly does need to showcase those improvements. B-plus for me, Nick. I'm not exactly sure they're going to put the same numbers as last year. I don't expect much of a fall. No, he should certainly be over the 30 point per game mark. Should be at least 450 yards mark. Which would actually be more. But I think this team will be playing from behind a good bit this season. So I expect these numbers to be right around the same.
I think they can get the numbers around the same. It's certainly a solid. I think this is a B offense for me. A little bit less than how you grade them. I just think that the pass yards per game will certainly come down. The yards per game and the points per game will find a way down. 36.1 points per game would be hard to replicate. Certainly the 311 yards per game through the air is an impressive number. This is a good unit that returns a lot of talent at wide receiver and running back. New quarterback taking the reins, being cut down on the turnovers. Certainly will go a long way for this team. I'm also concerned about the offensive line, but overall, it's a very good offense that has some nice potential. A B offense for me.
Looking at the defensive side of the ball, 28 points per game allowed a year ago, north of 400 yards allowed. They were awful against the pass once more. They returned 5 starters. They lost 4 players from the portal, only added 2. Only 3 portal adds this year for this football team, so they've really not addressed the side of the ball much. The entire program, that is. The defensive line, this has always been a talented unit. They do lose Rondell Lockboy, Kobe Turner. He was like a 93 rated run defender, an elite player there. Some big losses. One was a good defensive front. Jasheem Davis is back, though. A real productive edge that shows some sturdiness versus a run. Kendron Waitman will be laying down to provide some big production and was a pretty admirable player last season. He's probably for a big year. Jalen Hudson, he was also a consistent player, pretty solid in terms of being in position. B.J. Williams, the only other backup, only a few snaps last fall. Look at the interior defensive line. Kevin Pointer, 6'1", 285. I thought he was an effective defensive tackle. Only a few snaps for Justin Williams. They're going to be joined by 2 transfers. Bryce Gaines from Villanova was a great run stopper for them. Nick Helbig from Wesleyan College. Still good defensive line. Production and likely the run defense, though, especially the penetration in the middle. Probably in for a step back there with the losses of Turner and Bothroyd.
Certainly it's tough to replace Turner and Bothroyd, who were very talented players. Jasheem Davis is a very good player to return. He had 14 tackles for loss, 7 sacks for him, 33 total tackles. Great numbers for him. I think that's a really nice to return that production. Double digits tackles for loss is fantastic to return on your defensive line. Kevin Pointer, good player, limited snaps, but he had 13 total tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. I think those numbers were solid for him. They made some nice work in the portal, adding in some pieces, like you alluded to with Nick Helbig, and also adding in an additional piece in Bryce Gaines, who's also a solid player at defensive tackle. Kendron Waitman as well as another player they returned who has some potential. Very limited snaps in the past season, 17 total tackles for him, 4.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks for him. Good numbers overall from the defensive line. I like the production, I like the way they get after the quarterback.
On the defense, senior Chase Jones really struggled versus the run. He missed 17 tackles. He was a pretty valuable asset in coverage, though. spot in the starting lineup. Quincy Bryant, he was great versus the run in his brief appearances. Dylan Hazen was less than stellar, but gained some experience. This is a sound linebacking group with some expected improvement for me. Obviously had 31 sacks a season ago, and the linebackers really didn't play much of a role in that. It looks like they only had about 2.5 sacks from this group. And I think they're going to have more of a presence on the interior, Nick. I know the scheme doesn't exactly call for it, but they're going to have to send these guys home a little bit more, I think, this year.
Chase Jones is a good player, 74 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him, and an interception. Good player in pass protection, struggles against the run, but I think he can improve that. Jacob Roberts was a nice add for North Carolina A&T, good size on him. Good player, was a consistent performer. This is not a bad I think Jones and Roberts together as a 1-2 punch is solid. Jones, your top returning tackler for this team, with 74 total tackles, so I think that's a good to return a player like that.
And looking at the secondary, this is a unit that over the years has had talented ball players, but they never seem to slow down the pass ever. They're, consistently 110th or worse against the pass. Kalen Carson, such a great player, is a veteran corner. The rest of the group is filled with young guys. Deshaun Jones was an above-average performer. Redshirt sophomore should be even better, though. Samari Stevenson only saw a few snaps. Jamari Glasker didn't see any. Evan Skolin was a solid run defender, but he was awful in coverage. You look at the safety group. Malik Mustafa, he's been around a few years. He's one of the better players for this defense, though. A.J. Williams, a good tackler. We're hoping to see more snaps this season. Amongst the backups, though, Brendan Harris was the best one in coverage. Despite the talent they have against them, Nick, they've never been good at stopping the pass, and I don't think much is going to change this season either. I think this will be part of the defense that continues to play them.
I think this is an issue for this defense. Certainly, there are some guys who have some talent here, but overall, as a group, they kind of lack that competitive punch that you need to return. Kalen Carson is a good player in coverage, 7 pass breakups for him, 22 total tackles. Brendan Harris, limited appearances, but was good in the coverage in those limited games. He had 20 total tackles for him. I think those are some solid numbers. Deshaun Jones, 23 total tackles, 5 pass breakups. Good returning production there. Malik Mustafa, 58 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 3 pass breakups. Pretty good in coverage there as well. So I think this is a solid unit that has some decent players that can play in coverage. A.J. Williams, 47 total tackles, nice hard-hitting player there to return. So overall, it's not a bad unit that returns some nice talent.
I do want to sum up in 2021, they were top 50 against the pass. Lone outlier, though, the 4 or 5 years before that, consistently outside the top 110. So that's one thing I do want to clear up right there. That's the biggest thing he needs to improve. Next, the pass defense needs to limit the yards, which might be a bit of a tall task this year, because the pass rush is certain to take a bit of a step back. I'm going to go with a B- for me. This defensive line's been really talented over the past couple seasons, but it's not really benefited the rest of this defense, even though they've been good against the run, and that certainly is impactful for them over this 12-game season. The rest of the unit really needs to follow suit. I think there's some good talented ball players. That seems to be a theme year after year, is they do have some great talent. They seem to develop individual players. In terms of being a crushing unit that helps out this offense, though, it seems far and few.
Certainly needs to find a way to improve some of the players. They do have some solid talented pieces. They struggle as a team together. The pass yards per game is bad. They give up a lot of big unit plays. This is also, a B- defense for me. Pushing the C+ range. They're just terrible against the pass. They have to find a way. 28.3 points per game is too high of a number to give up. 81st in the nation. They really need to find a way to cut that down.
The schedule preview camp prediction. Wake finds themselves with a new single caller for the first time in a while, and the program will certainly benefit from Mitch Griffiths. The time he's had here, along with the receivers at his disposal. I think it's going to do wonders for this offense. Production is certain, but overall impact in crucial moments and against tough defense is going to be the biggest question mark here. Offensive line of the run game will be about as good as it was last season. Maybe some slight boosts. Defensive line is good. Linebacking group should slightly be better, but the secondary will once again allow too many yards while the pass rush. Again, fingers to take a small step back. I have this team starting off 4-0, Nick, and then losing almost every single game the rest of the year. That's hard to envision. I think this team is certainly better than that. I think they'll play a handful of close games. But these teams I have them losing to, I think they're overall just better than them. I think they'll knock off the Qs on the road in the season finale to get to 5 wins. I don't know, tough read on this football team. I think this is a fair prediction, but the way they get to 7 losses is probably not that fair.
I think this is a tough look on the schedule for this team. This is a good team on paper, just a tough draw at the schedule at Clemson, at Virginia Tech, at Notre Dame. All tough games. At Syracuse, no slouch either. It's a nice home stretch in October to November, but the teams that come to town, Pitt, Florida State, Duke, all very talented teams. Non-conference, very easy schedule there. Old Dominion, Vandy, and Elon, not tough at all. Vanderbilt, interesting play. An SEC team, certainly, and playing Notre Dame out of conference, basically, is an interesting game as well. This is a team that's good on paper, but I think Dave Clawson and his team have kind of stalled out. They've kind of hit their point here. It's going to be a 5-7 season. It's disappointing for Wake fans. They want to see this team competing higher levels in the ACC, but I just don't think they have the talent to compete in the ACC at this point in time. They can potentially get bowl eligibility, but it's going to be a tough ask.
I think 7 or 8 wins is certainly on the table. But these teams they go against, I don't think they're going to be better than. But if they do, I'd love to see that. I think that'd be big for Boston. If he can hit that 8-win mark, he'll be coaching somewhere else next year, Dick, is my assumption. I appreciate you.
Absolutely looking forward to this Wake Forest season.
Make sure you guys like,